What happens when one of the most outspoken hosts in television history goes head-to-head with royalty who refuses to play by the rules? In just 36 seconds, a single comment would ignite a firestorm that would end with one person storming off set and the other left standing their ground in what became the most talked-about television moment of the year. This is the story of how an interview spiraled completely out of control. The studio lights were hot that morning. Piers Morgan sat behind his desk, ready for another day of his morning show. He had interviewed thousands of guests over his career, politicians, celebrities, activists. He prided himself on asking the tough questions that others were too afraid to ask. He never backed down, never apologized for pushing boundaries, and never let anyone get away with dodging the truth. But this morning was different. Meghan Markle walked onto the set with an air of confidence that filled the entire room. She smiled for the cameras, waved to the studio audience, and took her seat across from Piers. The audience applauded. Some cheered. This was a big booking. Everyone wanted to hear what she had to say. Piers welcomed her with his usual straightforward approach. "Thank you for joining us this morning. I think a lot of people have questions, and I am hoping we can have an honest conversation today." Meghan smiled, but there was something behind that smile. Something calculated. "Of course, Piers, I am always happy to speak my truth." Right away, you could feel the tension. Piers was not the type to let vague statements slide. He leaned forward. "Your truth. That is an interesting phrase. What about the truth? The actual facts?" The smile on Meghan's face tightened just slightly. "Well, Piers, I think we all have our own perspectives on what the truth is." "No." Piers shot back immediately. "No, that is not how truth works. There are facts, and then there are feelings, and I think the public deserves to know which one you are sharing." The audience went quiet. This was not going to be a friendly chat. This was going to be a battle. Meghan shifted in her seat. She maintained her composure, but you could see the irritation starting to build. "I think what the public deserves is respect. Respect for what I have been through. Respect for my experience. And I absolutely respect your experience," Piers replied, his tone measured but firm. "But respect does not mean I have to accept everything you say without question. That is not journalism. That is not my job." Meghan let out a small laugh, but it was not a warm laugh. It was dismissive, condescending. "Oh, I see. So you are the arbiter of truth now? You get to decide what is real and what is not?" "I am not deciding anything," Piers said, his voice rising slightly. "I am asking you to back up your claims with evidence, with facts. You have made some very serious allegations, and people have a right to scrutinize them." "Scrutinize them?" Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Or attack me? Because that is what this feels like, Piers. An attack." Piers shook his head. "Asking questions is not an attack. Holding people accountable is not an attack. You are not above criticism just because of your title or your story." Meghan's eyes narrowed. This was the moment things started to shift. You could see her mask slipping. The polished, media-trained exterior was cracking. "You know what your problem is, Piers?" she said, leaning forward. "You cannot stand the fact that I will not sit here and let you bully me. You are used to people cowering when you raise your voice. Well, I am not one of those people." The audience gasped. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was escalating fast. Piers remained calm, too calm. It was the calm of someone who had been in this position 1,000 times before. "Bully you? I am asking you direct questions. If you find that bullying, maybe you should ask yourself why you are so afraid to answer them." "I am not afraid of anything," Meghan snapped. "Least of all you." "Then answer the question," Piers pressed. "You made a claim that has caused enormous damage to certain people's reputations. Do you have any proof? Any evidence at all?" Meghan paused. For the first time, she seemed unsure of how to respond. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke. "My word should be enough." Piers blinked. "Your word should be enough? Are you serious right now?" "Yes," Meghan said, her voice growing louder. "When someone tells you they have been hurt, when someone tells you they have suffered, you should believe them. That is called empathy, Piers. Maybe you should try it sometime." "Empathy does not mean turning off my brain," Piers fired back. "Empathy does not mean accepting every single thing someone says just because they claim to be a victim. There are real victims in this world who deserve our belief and our support. But that does not mean we stop asking questions. That does not mean we abandon truth. Meghan stood up suddenly. The movement was so abrupt that everyone in the studio froze. "How dare you?" she said, her voice shaking with anger. "How dare you sit there and lecture me about victimhood? You have no idea what I have been through. No idea." Piers stood up as well, matching her energy. "Then help me understand. Give me facts. Give me specifics. Do not just expect me to nod along because you want me to." "I do not need to explain myself to you," Meghan said, pointing a finger at him. "I do not need to justify my pain to you or anyone else. And the fact that you are demanding that I do shows exactly what kind of person you are." The audience was completely silent now. You could hear every breath in that studio. This had gone from a heated interview to a full-blown confrontation. Piers crossed his arms. "What kind of person am I, Meghan? Please, enlighten everyone." Meghan looked at him with pure contempt. "You are someone who makes a living tearing people down. Someone who hides behind the excuse of journalism to be cruel. Someone who does not care who they hurt as long as they get their ratings." The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just been dropped. Piers did not flinch. "Is that what you think? That I do not care about truth? That I do not care about holding powerful people accountable? Because from where I am standing, you are the one who seems to think the rules do not apply to you." "The rules?" Meghan laughed bitterly. "What rules, Piers? The rules that say I am supposed to sit here quietly while you disrespect me? The rules that say I am not allowed to defend myself?" "The rules of basic honesty," Piers said, his voice cutting through her words. "The rules that say if you are going to make serious accusations about people, you need to back them up. You cannot just throw bombs and then claim victimhood when someone asks you to explain yourself." Meghan stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no one expected. She smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just decided they were done playing nice. "You know what, Piers? I came here thinking we could have a real conversation. I thought maybe, just maybe, you would be willing to listen. But I can see now that this was a mistake." Piers tilted his head. "A mistake? You agreed to come on this show. You knew exactly what kind of interview this would be." "I thought you would have some integrity," Meghan shot back. "I thought you would treat me like a human being instead of a punching bag for your ego." "My ego?" Piers said, his voice rising. "You are the one who cannot handle a single challenging question without playing the victim card. You are the one who thinks the world should just accept everything you say without question." Meghan took a step closer to the desk. Her whole body was tense with anger. "I have had enough of this. I have had enough of you." "Then leave," Piers said simply. "If you cannot handle being questioned, if you cannot handle someone pushing back against your narrative, then walk off. But do not pretend that makes you brave. Do not pretend that makes you right." The challenge was out there now. Everyone in the studio held their breath. Meghan looked at Piers with absolute fury in her eyes. "You think I will not?" "I think you will do whatever gets you the most sympathy," Piers replied coldly. "That seems to be your specialty." That was the final straw. Meghan ripped off her microphone and threw it onto the desk. The sound echoed through the studio. "I am done here. I am not going to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has no respect for me or what I have been through." Piers did not move. He just watched her, his expression unreadable. "So that is it? Someone asks you tough questions, and you run away?" "I am not running away," Meghan said, her voice shaking. "I am choosing not to engage with someone who is clearly more interested in attacking me than having a real conversation." "I am interested in the truth," Piers said firmly. "If that feels like an attack to you, that says more about you than it does about me." Meghan grabbed her bag from beside the chair. The studio crew did not know what to do. Cameras were still rolling. The audience sat frozen in their seats. "You can have your truth, Piers," Meghan said as she started to walk toward the exit. "I will keep mine." "That is not how truth works," Piers called after her. "There is not your truth and my truth. There is just the truth." But Meghan was not listening anymore. She was already halfway to the door. Piers turned to the camera. His face was flushed, but his voice was steady. "Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we just saw someone who cannot handle being held accountable. This is what happens when you build your entire narrative on emotion rather than facts. The moment someone asks you to back up what you are saying, you fall apart." Meghan stopped at the studio door. She turned around one last time. "You know what your problem is, Piers? You think being cruel makes you honest. You think tearing people down makes you a journalist. But all it makes you is bitter. And you think playing the victim makes you noble?" Piers countered. You think refusing to answer questions makes you strong, but all it makes you is a coward. The word hung in the air like a slap. Meghan's face went red. What did you just call me? You heard me, Piers said, not backing down an inch. If you were really as strong as you claim to be, you would stay here and defend your position. You would answer the questions. You would engage with the criticism. But instead, you are running away. So yes, I am calling you a coward. The entire studio gasped. This had crossed a line that no one expected. Meghan walked back toward the desk, her hands shaking. You have absolutely no right to call me that. No right at all. I have every right to call out what I see, Piers said. And what I see is someone who wants all the attention and none of the accountability. Someone who wants to make serious allegations but does not want to be questioned about them. Someone who thinks their feelings are more important than facts. My feelings are important, Meghan shouted, her composure completely gone now. My experience is valid. And the fact that you cannot accept that shows exactly what kind of person you are. I never said your feelings were not important, Piers replied, his voice dangerously calm. But feelings are not facts, and you cannot expect the world to accept your version of events just because you feel strongly about them. Meghan was breathing hard now. You could see tears starting to form in her eyes, but they were tears of anger, not sadness. I cannot believe you. I cannot believe anyone would be this cruel. It is not cruel to ask for evidence, Piers said. It is not cruel to demand accountability. What is cruel is making serious accusations that can destroy people's lives and then refusing to back them up. I do not need to prove anything to you, Meghan said, her voice breaking. Then why did you come here? Piers asked, spreading his hands. Why did you agree to this interview if you were not prepared to defend your statements? What did you think was going to happen? Meghan wiped at her eyes angrily. I thought I would be treated with basic human decency. I thought wrong. Human decency does not mean letting you lie unchallenged, Piers said flatly. Human decency does not mean pretending that serious allegations do not need to be proven. You want to be treated like everyone else? Fine. Then you get questioned like everyone else. Meghan shook her head. You are unbelievable. You are absolutely unbelievable. And you are. Deflecting, Piers shot back. You are doing everything possible to avoid answering the actual questions. You are making this about me instead of about the claims you made. That is a classic deflection tactic, and I am not falling for it. The audience was completely transfixed. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked like they could not believe what they were witnessing, but no one could look away. Meghan took a deep breath, trying to compose herself, but the damage was done. Her carefully constructed image had shattered right there on live television. I came here in good faith, she said, her voice quieter now but still filled with anger. I came here hoping for an honest dialogue, but you do not want dialogue, Piers. You want to fight. You want to humiliate me. I want the truth, Piers said simply. That is all I have ever wanted. If that humiliates you, maybe you should ask yourself why. Meghan stared at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her microphone from the desk and held it out to him. Here, you clearly do not need me for this interview. You have already decided what you think. You have already made up your mind. So why do not you just interview yourself? It would be easier for everyone. Piers did not take the microphone. I have not made up my mind about anything. I am asking you to help me understand. But you refuse to engage with the questions. You refuse to provide any evidence or context. What am I supposed to do with that? You are supposed to believe me, Meghan said, her voice cracking. You are supposed to trust that when someone tells you they have been hurt, they are telling the truth. But what if they are not? Piers asked quietly. What if someone is lying? What if someone is exaggerating? What if someone has an agenda? Are we just supposed to accept everything at face value? Is that really the world you want to live in? Meghan dropped the microphone on the desk again. The world I want to live in is one where people have compassion, where people give others the benefit of the doubt, where people do not immediately assume the worst. And I want to live in a world where people tell the truth, Piers replied, where people do not make false accusations, where people take responsibility for their words. Why is your world more important than mine? Because mine is about kindness, Meghan said. Yours is about cruelty. No, Piers said firmly. Mine is about truth. And if you think truth is cruel, that tells me everything I need to know. Meghan picked up her bag again. This time, there was no hesitation. I am leaving. I am not going to stay here and be attacked like this. Then leave. Piers said, his voice hard. "But when you walk out that door, remember that you are proving my point. You are proving that you cannot handle scrutiny. You are proving that you want everyone to accept your narrative without question. And that, Meghan, is not how the real world works." Meghan turned to face him one last time. Her eyes were blazing with anger. "You know what? I feel sorry for you, Piers. I really do. You are so obsessed with being right that you have forgotten how to be human. And you are so obsessed with being seen as a victim that you have forgotten how to be honest," Piers countered. "So I guess we are both disappointed in each other." Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She just stood there, shaking with rage and frustration. Piers waited. The entire studio waited. Finally, Meghan turned and walked toward the exit. But just before she reached the door, Piers called out one more time, "Meghan." She stopped but did not turn around. "If you are telling the truth," Piers said, his voice softer now but still firm, "then you have nothing to fear from my questions. If your story is solid, it will stand up to scrutiny. The fact that you were running away suggests you know it will not." Meghan's shoulders tensed. For a moment, it looked like she might turn around, like she might come back and continue the fight. But she did not. She pushed open the studio door and walked out, letting it slam behind her. The sound of the door closing echoed through the studio. No one moved. No one spoke. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the aftermath. Piers stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door. Then he turned back to the camera. His face was serious, but there was something else there too. Vindication, maybe. Or just exhaustion from the battle. "Well," he said, addressing the audience and the viewers at home, "I think we all just witnessed something quite extraordinary. We watched someone who claims to value truth refuse to answer direct questions. We watched someone who claims to be a victim of bullying try to bully me for doing my job. And we watched someone who demands respect show absolutely no respect for the process of journalism." The studio audience began to applaud. It started slowly, with just a few people clapping, but then more joined in, and more, until the entire studio was applauding. Piers raised a hand to quiet them down. "I take no pleasure in what just happened. I genuinely hoped we could have a productive conversation. I hoped Meghan would be willing to engage with the questions and provide some clarity. But instead, we got exactly what I expected. Deflection, victimhood, and, ultimately, a dramatic exit." He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. "Here is the thing that people need to understand. When you make serious allegations about people, when you accuse them of terrible things, you do not get to just walk away when someone asks you to back it up. You do not get to play the victim when someone holds you accountable. That is not how this works. That is not how any of this works." The audience applauded again, louder this time. Piers continued, "I have been called every name in the book over the years. I have been accused of being harsh, of being mean, of being too aggressive. And maybe, sometimes I am. But you know what I am not? I am not someone who lets people get away with making false claims just because they have a title or a sob story. I am not someone who abandons truth in favor of feelings. And I am certainly not someone who will sit here and pretend that what we just saw was anything other than a complete inability to handle basic questioning." He paused, letting his words sink in. Meghan Markle came on this show claiming she wanted to have a conversation, but what she really wanted was a platform to share her narrative without any pushback. She wanted me to nod along and agree with everything she said. And when I did not do that, when I dared to ask her to back up her claims, she fell apart. She could not handle it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, tells you everything you need to know. The studio erupted in applause one more time. Piers let them continue for a moment before raising his hand again. "Now, I am sure there will be people out there who think I was too hard on her. I am sure there will be people who say I should have been more gentle, more understanding. And to those people, I say this. If we stop asking tough questions, if we stop demanding evidence and accountability, then we lose something fundamental. We lose truth. And without truth, we have nothing." He looked directly into the camera, his gaze intense and unwavering. "So no, I will not apologize for what happened here today. I will not apologize for doing my job. I will not apologize for refusing to let someone use victimhood as a shield against legitimate scrutiny. And if that makes me the bad guy in some people's eyes, so be it. I would rather be the bad guy who tells the truth than the good guy who lies." The camera slowly zoomed in on Piers' face as he delivered his final words. Meghan Markle walked off this set today because she could not handle being questioned. She walked off because she knew her story did not hold up under scrutiny. She walked off because the truth matters, even when it is uncomfortable. And I will always, always choose truth over comfort. The studio lights dimmed slightly, creating a dramatic effect. Piers sat back in his chair, his expression resolute. The audience continued to applaud, some people even standing now, giving him a standing ovation. And that was it. That was the moment that defined everything. The moment when one person stood their ground and another could not handle the pressure. The moment when truth clashed with narrative. The moment when someone who claimed to be seeking honest dialogue revealed they only wanted validation. The interview that was supposed to be a conversation became a confrontation. The confrontation became a fight. And the fight ended with one person walking away and another standing firm. In just 36 seconds of that final exchange, everything had changed. One comment, one accusation, one refusal to back down. And it all came crashing down in the most spectacular way possible. The cameras kept rolling even after Meghan left, capturing Piers as he sat there, processing what had just happened. You could see it on his face. This was not how he wanted it to go, but it was how it had to go. Because at the end of the day, the truth mattered more than anyone's feelings. The truth mattered more than comfort. The truth mattered more than protecting someone's image. And Piers Morgan, whatever you think of him, had stood up for that truth. He had refused to back down. He had refused to let someone make serious allegations without backing them up. He had done his job, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it made him look like the villain to some people, even when it meant watching someone walk off his set in anger and frustration, because that is what real journalism looks like sometimes. It is not always pretty, it is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. The studio audience slowly stopped, applauding. The energy in the room began to shift from electric tension to something quieter, something more contemplative. People were processing what they had just witnessed. Some looked satisfied, others looked troubled. But everyone knew they had just seen something they would never forget. Piers finally broke the silence. "All right," he said, his voice returning to his normal hosting tone. "I think we all need a moment to process what just happened. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will continue with the rest of the show." The camera cut away. The commercial break began, but the damage was done. The moment had been captured, and nothing would ever be quite the same after that.